Hello. I have a box. You might be thinking, what is in the box, Jacob? Why do you need this box? Well, if you're working on an LS1, you want this box. Why do I need this box? You see that? That is bread crumbs underneath my engine. Well, that's kind of weird. Why would there be breadcrumbs underneath your engine? There's a trick that if you want to remove a pilot bearing from the back of the crankshaft. Ugh. Let me get some light. Can I turn my light on? No, I can't. Live in the dark. In the back of that crankshaft, there's a pilot bearing. The pilot bearing supports the input shaft, right there. And there's a trick to get these out where you shove a bunch of bread in the middle and you hit it with a hammer with a big bolt in there, and the bread acts like a hydraulic ram and blows the pilot bearing out the back of the crankshaft. Really cool trick. What's not cool at all is that LS1s have a freeze plug back there. Because this is a high performance engine, Chevy drills through the center of the whole crankshaft to make it weigh less. And so you don't have a massive oil leak, they put a freeze plug in the back of it. So I shoved a bunch of bread in the back of my LS1, hit it with a hammer, 2 whole hamburger buns to be exact, and I blew that freeze plug into the engine, all the way through the crank, and who knows how much bread is now inside of my oil pan. So, that box is the correct tool to pull out that pilot bearing. So, I now have an oil pan full of bread with a freeze plug, and I have just in one seamless stroke added 4 hours to this whole project of changing a clutch. In the Corvette that I have drove for 5 days in my last month of ownership. Not bad, right? This is a slide hammer with blind hole pullers. And the way these work is you stick this into the pilot bearing and you tighten this up, and you can see that expands. And these little lips, little teeth, are going to grab the back of the pilot bearing. This then screws into this slide hammer, and you use literally this slide as a hammer, and you're going to blow the back and hopefully try to get the pilot bearing to let loose out of the crankshaft. Not requiring 2 hamburger buns worth of bread, amazingly. Who would have thought? Who would have thought the right tools are actually worth it? Not me, apparently. But now I have the right tool. I only learned my lessons the hard way. Let's see how good this thing works. Okay, so first, get the right size that fits in the pilot bearing. Nice and snug, and then we'll take our little expander, screw that into the back of the tool until it gets really tight in there. Take the slide hammer, screw it on the back of said tool. Let's see if we can't get this to work for us a little better than the bread. I think it will. Okay, I turned the camera off because I did not know how long I would be here, but I'm now exhausted and out of breath, but it has moved. I found the best trick Just get both hands, cut behind the hammer, and then just act like there's not a stop there. And just keep wailing. It's moving. Oof. There she is, boys. Look at that action. Look at that. And look at this. This is bread. Ooh-wee. Let's see if we can get a look in there. You up the tripod. So the plug is still there in the back, you can see it, but it's not in its bore anymore. It's just sitting there, resting against a connecting rod right now. And I have no idea how much bread I pushed into this thing. Here's the new freeze plug that's gonna go in the back of the crankshaft. And oh yeah, made in Canada. GM apparently outsources a lot of their parts to Canada. I think Canada does all of the castings as well for heads, blocks, oil pans, stuff like that. Okay, the new freeze plug is back there. New pilot bearing is pressed in. And the flywheel I'm gonna be switching to is this ACT Chromoly steel flywheel. These are really cool because they weigh the same as an aluminum flywheel, but because it's chromoly steel, it does not have the warpage issues like aluminum does. All right, the flywheel is installed and torqued down. I'm gonna get it cleaned up, and then we will prepare the pressure plate and clutch assembly to pop on next. Got the Chromoly flywheel, SFI pressure plate, SFI clutch disc. So this is gonna be plenty strong enough for the plans I have for this first engine. Also went ahead and put a brand new release throwout bearing on the torque tube, and also added a clutch speed bleeder line, because if you know anything about C5 clutch bleeding, the factory bleeder goes in right here, which sticks out way up there. So you have to snake through your exhaust around the torque tube and try to hit that bleeder. Or you can put one of these speed bleeders on, remote bleeders I mean, and they relocate it so you can just bleed it normally, hanging out the car right here. All right, so it's been a little bit since I saw you guys last. Since then, we got the whole torque tube assembly put back in the car. All the rear cradle and rear suspension is all reinstalled. Control arms, shock, cradle mounts. I also added stainless brake lines in the rear, did new rotors and some new Hawk street pads. We're also gonna do the same in the front. And then, oh, I added an MGW shifter, which feels so solid. And then got the brake fluid, or the clutch fluid is all bled and ready to go. So now I've got to lower the car back on its wheels for the rear so I can start tearing apart the front end so I can drop the front cradle out and try to get all that bread and freeze plug cleaned out from inside the oil pan. So that is this afternoon's project. I'm hoping I can have this thing finished up possibly by late tonight, if not tomorrow morning. Definitely get it to fire up again. I literally owned this car for 5 days and it's been sitting on blocks now for 2.5, 3, 4 weeks. Too long to count, can't remember. I think that's the story how every car goes though. Let's get to work. Okay, fast forward a few hours of labor and work. I've got the oil pan off the engine. And right now we're looking at the oil pump pickup. LS has come with a windage tray. And if you look very carefully right there, what is that? Look at all that bread. Look at that. In fact, there's more. That's a big one. Look at that. How neat. How neat is that? So I'm gonna get the windage tray popped off, take off the oil pump pickup, and we'll start cleaning out this bread. Okay, that is the inside of an LS1. You can see we have our connecting rods right here. This is part of the crankshaft, and these are all the main caps on the block. There's a little reluctor wheel and all cool stuff. However, I literally just pulled off the windage tray that was covering up the engine, and the windage tray is there to help prevent oil from sloshing up, and when the crankshaft whips through the oil, it foams it all up, and you can sometimes run into cavitation issues where your oil pump starts sucking up air bubbles with the oil. So anyways, pulled off the windage tray. I literally haven't moved because I wanted to show you guys what 2 hamburger buns of bread and a freeze plug looks like inside of an LS1. If I had tried starting this engine, this would immediately have shut this motor down so fast. This is unreal. Look at this. It is rock hard too, obviously. It's so stale and just oil impregnated. This is insane. I need to get all up in there and clean out whatever bread may possibly be hiding. And then as well run all this out and start putting this thing back together. Back in the garage, I got the oil pan all cleaned up, took off this tray, made sure everything was clean inside of there. About to reinstall the windage tray. I've got the engine supported on this little support bar dude because I had to lower down the front cradle. So I'm going to get this in position, get it torqued down, and then I'll install the oil pan.
It is a new day. Actually, it's been a few days. Sorry. I didn't film too much. I was putting the Corvette back together after the oil pan, but it's all back together. I've test driven it probably 100 miles now, and so far no issues. I'm driving to Dallas this weekend actually, and so that'll be the first real long test drive, but I'm just gonna send it. I need help picking a name for this thing. The truck is Betty White, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to name this thing. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Other than that, runs perfect.
Before ending this video, I wanted to leave y'all with the glorious sounds of an LS1.